Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I'm very glad to see this committee working together to address the opioid crisis. In Massachusetts, more than 5 people are dying every day on average from opioid overdoses, and we need action now on this. Senator Capito and I have been working together for several years on a bill to allow partial filling of opioid prescriptions so that people only get the opioids that they actually need. And the idea is to reduce the number of pills that are in circulation. We got this legislation passed in 2016, and we recently introduced a bill to improve implementation of this law by clarifying the FDA's authority to make sure that doctors and patients actually knew about the partial fill option. You know, this is one of those bipartisan consensus, common sense provisions that would reduce unused medications that are lying around in the home. And I'm hoping that we will be able to get it included in the final passage as it goes through committee, and that we'll continue to work together on this. Let me just ask a question about the risks posed by unused medications. Mr. Morrison, why might unused medications lying around the house pose a risk of misuse or diversion?
Sure. We know from data that SAMHSA collects that the source of the use of medications that are not prescribed to folks, about half come from that particular situation, friends and family. Mm-hmm. So efforts to make sure that doesn't happen are really important.
Right. And friends and family, they may not even know about it, but it's up there on the shelf and poses a risk.
That's right.
Yeah. So one of the times that individuals are most likely to use opioids to manage pain is at the end of life. But right now, in many states, hospice employees are not legally allowed to dispose of opioid medications on behalf of a patient who has passed away. So I've, again, been working on a bipartisan basis with colleagues to try to address this issue and make sure that hospice employees can safely dispose of medications. Families dealing with the loss of a loved one shouldn't also have to worry about dealing with dangerous leftover drugs. Here's something else that families shouldn't have to worry about: whether a sober living home is actually helping their loved ones recover or pushing them back into addiction. Mr. Morrison, can recovery housing be an important piece of the puzzle for individuals in recovery from addiction?
It's a critical part of the continuum. I know in Massachusetts you all worked with the National Association of Recovery Residences. They've developed a tier level of explanation about different options. We've been working closely with them, other states as well. Recovery housing is critical.
And can you just say another word about the quality of recovery housing? Is there some variation here?
There can be, and I think the bill that is before the committee, the discussion draft, seeks to put out standards, models, so that states can look at those, talk to each other, and look at best ways to implement recovering housing with important standards.
Good. You know, most of these facilities do a great job, but there are too many examples of ones that don't. I led a bipartisan request to get the GAO to look into this problem, and this discussion draft also contains language that I've been working on with Senator Kaine and others to try to establish best practices for recovery homes and to help patients make the best choices in their recovery. My view on this is we need to use every single tool in the toolbox to tackle this epidemic, and these bipartisan efforts will help, and I'm glad to work on them. But let me be clear on this. Congress has nibbled around the edge of this problem for years, and the problem has gotten worse and worse. And this latest round of policy changes is no substitute for giving communities the resources and the expertise they need to fight this fight on the ground. And that's why Congressman Cummings and I are introducing new legislation based on the Ryan White CARE Act, the landmark bill that Senator Kennedy and Senator Hatch passed back in 1990 to tackle the HIV/AIDS epidemic. And I hope senators on both sides of the aisle will support it, because the AIDS crisis taught us that what it takes to beat an epidemic like this is that we really have to put the resources and the energy behind it. And right now, I just don't think we're doing what it takes. We need to do better. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.